and he enslaved at any given time up to 178 people here. The plantation itself was active from as early as 1811 all the way through 1939. Following emancipation, the end of the Civil War, passage of the 13th Amendment, this plantation switched over to a labor system of tenant farming and sharecropping, with most of the tenant farmers and sharecroppers being formerly enslaved individuals, African Americans, and those families, not in the number of hundreds, but generally we know in 1866 there were 66 tenant farmers based on labor contracts here. They lived in tenant houses across the plantation and forged lives for themselves in the best they could in the system of different slavery, but a different form of oppression that was sharecropping. Then in 1939, the 2,000-acre cotton plantation was sold by the White Gist family to the Forest Service, who had been buying up lots of old cotton plantations, and they planted Sumter National Forest. So that's why you're seeing all these trees around here. They didn't pop up till the late 1930s, 1940s. The plantation then in the 1940s and 50s, 44 acres of it that we have now was acquired by a private investor who worked on renovating the mansion and probably working on the gardens. As far as we can tell, he didn't do anything with any other buildings, potentially demolishing historical buildings. We're really not sure. The only two original structures still standing from the plantation period here are the main big house and the kitchen house, the brick building. Unfortunately, we do not know where the former enslaved cabins were. We know they would have been here. We just don't know where or what they look like. It looks like in 1860, based on the census, there were 20 listed on the census. And we do have the 1860 census, which is called the slave schedule. In 1850 and then in 1860, enslaved individuals were listed in a separate section of the census called the slave schedule. So we do have the 1860 slave schedule up, which lists between the red lines the 178 people who were enslaved here and at Gist other plantations that year. Unfortunately, not one individual has a name, but each human being, individual, is represented with a age, a gender, and a color. And a few individuals have a skill set listed. And you'll also see we have a document from 1819. That's the year William Henry Gist's father died, and as his father's only known living child, a 12-year-old William Henry Gist inherited much of his father's property, and that included inheriting 23 human beings. Everybody listed in yellow on that document is who a 12-year-old William Henry Gist inherited in 1819. And if you flip it over...
Question, did he have any siblings?
Not that we know of. Okay. Gist was an illegitimate child.
Okay.
So as far as we know, he didn't, but it's very possible he did. He was raised after his father's death by his uncle, so raised with his cousins. You'll notice on that document that lists those people, every person, every individual person is given a value ascribed by an appraiser, and you can flip it over and the document is, it's transcribed into print because it's kind of hard to read. So you can get closer to look at the names if you want to see. Those, we have those names, and then there's the paper you picked up with other names. We're constantly trying to get the names of the people who lived their lives here in bondage, and then after freedom, following emancipation as sharecroppers, tenant farmers, they lived their lives here, and many of these individuals, their family and themselves were enslaved here before that. So it's a constant process. That's a really brief overview, and we're here for questions, but I'm going to let Infinity speak a little about some of the trades.